For centuries, the mighty Zalari Dominion ruled the Milky Way with an iron grip. Their empire, built on conquest, had enslaved dozens of civilizations, crushing any notion of rebellion with brutal efficiency. Among the conquered races, humans were seen as nothing more than expendable labor, a minor species that had shown promise in their early expansion but was swiftly subdued before they could challenge the Dominion's supremacy. Now, humanity toiled in the mines of Varkos 7, a desolate planet rich in Crithium, the rare mineral that powered the Dominion's warships. Every day, thousands of humans descended into the dark caverns, digging endlessly while the Zalari overseers patrolled the camps, their plasma whips cracking against any sign of disobedience. The humans had been broken, or so the overlords believed. But in the depths of the mines, where the Zalari rarely ventured, whispers of rebellion stirred. Nathan Cole, a former captain in Earth's fleet before the fall, was one of the few who had retained his fire. The Dominion had stripped humanity of their technology, their weapons, and their freedom. Yet, one thing they could never strip away was their ingenuity. Nathan crouched near a cluster of miners, pretending to sharpen his worn-out digging tool against a rock. In reality, he was carving a coded message, a plan that had taken years to set in motion. Beside him, Mira Solis, an engineer who had once designed Earth's warships, nodded slightly as she glanced at the symbols. "The explosives are ready," she whispered under her breath. "Just say the word." Nathan didn't respond immediately. Timing was everything. They weren't just planning to escape, they were planning to cripple the Dominion supply chain. If they succeeded, it would be the first real strike against the Zalari in decades. A loud screech echoed through the cavern as a Zalari enforcer descended from an anti-grav platform, its tall, insectoid body exuding an aura of superiority. Its 6 crimson eyes scanned the workers with disdain. "You are behind schedule," it hissed in its native tongue, its translation device converting the words into something humans could understand. "Production will be increased. Those who fail to meet quotas will be executed." Nathan clenched his fists but kept his face neutral. Emotions had doomed many before. He wouldn't make the same mistake. The Zalari enforcer moved toward a young miner who had collapsed from exhaustion. Without hesitation, it raised its plasma whip, ready to strike. Nathan made his move. With a swift motion, he drove his mining tool straight into the Zalari's throat, piercing the soft chitin under its mandibles. The enforcer let out a gurgled screech as green blood sprayed across the cavern. For a moment, there was silence. Then chaos erupted. Mira triggered the explosives they had buried beneath the main support beams. The mines shook violently as controlled blasts collapsed the outer tunnels, sealing off the exits and cutting off reinforcements. "All units, move!" Nathan shouted as the humans, long oppressed but never truly defeated, sprang into action. They swarmed the stunned overseers, using makeshift weapons to bring down their tyrants. The Zalari had never expected resistance from mere slaves. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake? Underestimating humanity's ability to adapt. As alarms blared across the mining colony, Nathan led his people toward the transport bays. They had a ship waiting, an old Dominion freighter Mira had secretly repaired over the years, hidden beneath the cover of the mining facilities. But escaping Varkos 7 was just the beginning. The real game was about to begin. The stolen Zalari freighter shot through the void, engines burning hot as it weaved through the asteroid belts surrounding Varkos 7. Inside, the air was thick with tension as Nathan Cole and his ragtag crew of former slaves manned their stations. Mira Solis sat at the navigation console, her fingers dancing across the controls. "We're clear of the initial sensor range, but the Dominion will know something's wrong any second now." Nathan stood behind her, eyes fixed on the holodisplay of their route. He knew they had only minutes before Zalari warships descended on them like vultures. "Then we need to vanish before that happens." "How long until we hit the jump point?" 2 minutes, Mira replied. "Assuming the drive holds together." Nathan turned to the rest of the crew, a mix of former miners, engineers, and technicians. They weren't soldiers, not yet, but they were humanity's best chance at striking back. Everyone, listen up. The moment we reach the jump point, they'll try to stop us. We hold them off, or we die here." A murmur of determination ran through the crew. They had suffered under the Zalari's rule for too long. This was their first taste of freedom, and they weren't about to give it up. Alarms blared. Myra's eyes widened. "They're here." The main screen flickered, revealing 2 Dominion interceptors dropping out of FTL right in their path. Sleek, predatory warships, their weapons already charging. A voice, deep and laced with arrogance, crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel, you are in possession of stolen Dominion property. Power down and prepare for immediate boarding." Nathan smirked. "Not happening." He turned to Dom, a former heavy machinery operator now sitting at the weapons console. "Give them a hello gift." Dom grinned and slammed his fist on the controls. The freighter wasn't a warship, but Mira had made some modifications. Twin plasma turrets swiveled and fired, catching one of the interceptors off guard. The ship's shields flickered before a direct hit sent it spiraling out of formation. The second interceptor retaliated, sending a barrage of ion blasts their way. The freighter rocked violently, lights flickering. Sparks erupted from a nearby panel. "Shields are down to 30%, a crew member shouted. Nathan grabbed the comms. "Mira, tell me you have good news." "We're at the jump point," she replied, fingers flying over the controls. "Initiating FTL in 3, 2, 1. The freighter lurched as the stars stretched into streaks of light. They were gone. A collective breath of relief swept through the crew, but Nathan knew this was just the beginning. Mira wiped sweat from her forehead. "That was too close." Nathan nodded. "And the Dominion won't let it slide. They'll hunt us down." "So what now?" Dom asked. Nathan turned to the holodisplay, pulling up a star map. "Now, we stop running." Mira frowned. "What do you mean?" Nathan's expression was steely. "The Dominion expects us to flee, to hide. That's what every other enslaved species has done. But we're not like them. We're not just escaping." He pointed to a distant sector on the map, one filled with abandoned outposts, forgotten battlefields, and hidden weapons caches from the old Humans Outplayed War. "We're going to fight back." The freighter, now aptly named the Phoenix, drifted through the empty expanse of deep space. It was a far cry from the massive ships of the Dominion, but it had one thing that their warships didn't: human ingenuity. Nathan Cole stood at the center of the command deck, eyes locked on the holodisplay, watching the data streams and star systems as they sped past. They were in a part of space that even the Zalari avoided. This region of the galaxy had been a battleground in the early years of the war, where human fleets had once fought tooth and nail to repel the Dominion's initial invasions. The weapons caches hidden across these old battlefields were humanity's best chance for a comeback, but they would have to move fast. The Dominion would not be far behind. Mira was at the navigation console, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. "We've got a few targets in range, old human military stations, some abandoned colonies. It's a long shot, but if we can get to those supply caches, we might stand a chance." Nathan nodded grimly. "Make it happen. No one sleeps until we're armed." The crew scattered, all too eager to assist. They had nothing but each other now, no allies, no fleet, just the will to survive and the fire of vengeance burning in their hearts. Hours passed in tense silence. Mira guided the Phoenix toward the first location, a forgotten human outpost on the rim of a dead system. The station, long abandoned, stood in the cold emptiness like a ghost, its surface pocked with battle scars. "Looks like the Dominion never bothered with this one," Dom muttered, eyes scanning the monitors as the crew prepared to board. "Should be good for supplies." Nathan motioned for Mira to land. "Let's not get too comfortable. They'll catch up soon enough." The docking bay doors opened with a groan as the crew stepped onto the desolate station. The air was thick with dust, and the lights flickered dimly above them. Mira led the way, her boots crunching against the debris-covered floor. "This place was evacuated years ago," she said, her voice echoing through the abandoned hallways. "But if there's anything left, it's probably in the storage vaults near the central hub." They moved quickly, securing the area as they went. Nathan's mind raced. This was their first real strike against the Dominion, and they couldn't afford to waste a single moment. The station was eerily quiet, but Nathan knew better than to think it was abandoned in the true sense of the word. He could feel the weight of eyes on them. The Zalari were efficient, they would have set traps. Just as they reached the central vault, the alarm blared, and the entire station seemed to come alive. A hidden Zalari patrol ship had detected the Phoenix and followed them in. "Damn it!" Dom cursed. "We've got company." Nathan cursed under his breath, his hand already reaching for his sidearm. "Everyone, to the vault. We need those supplies now." The crew rushed toward the vault, but the Zalari forces were already descending upon them. A group of enforcers materialized from behind the debris, their plasma rifles charging. Mira and Dom fired first, the crack of energy weapons filling the corridor. The Zalari shrieked in their native tongue, but the humans were too quick, too coordinated. Years of being hunted had sharpened their senses, and now, they used that same survival instinct to strike back. Nathan fired into the center of the group, taking down 2 of the enforcers with precise shots. The remaining Zalari attempted to regroup, but the humans were already moving in, ruthless and efficient. Mira reached the vault door and slammed her hand onto the activation panel. The door groaned and slowly began to open, revealing crates filled with weapons, food, and supplies long untouched. "We're good, we've got what we came for," she shouted, her voice tinged with triumph. But Nathan's eyes were already scanning the horizon. The sound of engines was growing louder, and he knew that this victory was fleeting. The Dominion's response would be swift. "Move it, we need to get out of here," Nathan barked. "Back to the Phoenix, now!" The crew grabbed what they could carry and made a desperate sprint back to the docking bay. The sound of enemy ships drawing closer made their every step feel like a countdown to death. As they loaded up into the freighter and sealed the hatch, the first volley of fire struck the station, rocking it to its foundations. Mira hit the thrusters, and the Phoenix shot into space, narrowly avoiding a blast from a pursuing Dominion ship. Nathan watched as the station behind them exploded into a fiery blaze, their first victory in a galaxy that had long written off humanity. But he knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle was about to begin, and the Zalari had no idea what they were about to face. The Phoenix sped through the stars, leaving the wreckage of the old human outpost far behind. The crew was exhausted, but their spirits were high. Today, they had taken a stand. But Nathan Cole knew this was just the beginning. The Dominion would retaliate, and their resources were still limited. Mira Solis stared at the hollow map, eyes scanning through potential safe routes and hiding spots. "We've got some supplies, but we need more if we're going to stand a chance. There are other outposts we can hit, but we're pushing our luck. We need to make contact with other human survivors, organize, build a real resistance." Nathan leaned over her shoulder, frowning. "The Dominion has the entire galaxy under their thumb. How do we even begin to organize a resistance from nothing?" Mira didn't look up from the map. "We start with what we have. There are old communication relays scattered across the galaxy, hidden in places the Dominion hasn't checked. If we can reach one of them, we might be able to broadcast a signal, make contact with other survivors, or even other species." Nathan clenched his jaw. The thought of relying on scattered survivors, isolated and desperate, was a far cry from the unified forces of the Dominion. But it was their only option. "Where's the nearest relay?" "There's one on the planet Kairos," Mira said, tapping a series of coordinates into the console. "It's an old human colony that was abandoned after a failed settlement attempt. It's risky, but it might be our best bet." Nathan's gaze hardened. "Prepare the ship. We leave now." Kairos was an arid, desolate planet, its surface littered with the ruins of an ill-fated colony that had once tried to make a stand against the Dominion. Now, the dust of those dead hopes lay over everything, and the only signs of life were the abandoned outposts and the occasional scavenger looking for scraps. Landing on the planet's surface was uneventful. The freighter settled down on the outskirts of the main settlement, a crumbling structure barely recognizable as a city. "We've got about 3 hours before the Zalari get here," Nathan said, his voice low. "We make contact with the relay, and we get out. Fast." Mira nodded, grabbing her gear. "Let's move." The crew moved swiftly through the desolate streets of Kairos, keeping to the shadows. The ancient structures, now barely standing, offered some protection, but there was no mistaking the feeling that they were being watched. Nathan's instincts were on high alert. It wasn't just the Zalari they had to worry about. The ruins of Kairos were notorious for harboring rogue elements, pirates, criminals, and the desperate who had turned to scavenging to survive. They reached the old communication relay building, a towering structure of rusted metal and cracked glass. The power was still functional, but barely. Mira worked quickly, her fingers flying over the console as she tried to restore the signal. "It's barely responsive," she muttered, "but it's enough to send a message. I can patch through to the old military frequencies, reach some of the old resistance networks." Nathan watched her, eyes scanning the area. "How long do we have?" "Depends how fast this thing can send a signal," Mira replied. "Give me 10 minutes. Suddenly, the sound of engines filled the air. Nathan's heart dropped. "They're here." "How many?" Dom asked, his hand on the weapon strapped to his side. "Enough to wipe us out," Nathan said grimly. "We're not going to make it out of here unless we move now." "We can't leave without the message," Mira shot back, not looking up from the console. "This is our chance to start something bigger than just us." Nathan took a deep breath, then turned to Dom, "Cover Mira. We're staying." As the Zalari forces descended upon the station, the crew split into groups. Dom and 2 others set up a defensive perimeter around the building, while Nathan and Mira stayed behind to ensure the message was sent. The roar of plasma weapons could be heard in the distance as the first wave of Zalari soldiers arrived. Mira's fingers flew over the console as she finalized the transmission. "Done," she said, her voice tight. "Message is broadcasting on all frequencies." Nathan exhaled in relief, but it was short-lived. The sound of Zalari boots echoed closer. "We've got less than 5 minutes. Let's go." The crew sprinted through the ruins, cutting through side streets and narrow alleys as plasma fire rang out behind them. The Zalari were relentless, but the humans were faster, more desperate. They reached the Phoenix in record time, just as a wave of Zalari enforcers closed in. Dom fired off a few shots, keeping the Zalari at bay, but they were surrounded. The freighter's engines roared to life as Mira slammed the controls, and with a sudden burst of speed, the Phoenix shot into the atmosphere, narrowly avoiding the barrage of fire aimed at them. As the planet Kairos shrank behind them, Nathan turned to his crew. "We've done it. We've sent the message." But as the Phoenix sped through the stars, Nathan knew that the hard part was just beginning. The Dominion was about to find out that humanity was no longer their prey. Weeks passed in the cold, unfeeling vastness of space, but the message broadcasted from Kairos had already begun to resonate across the galaxy. As the Phoenix made its way through abandoned sectors, Nathan Cole and his crew received fragments of hope, signals, transmissions, encrypted messages from scattered survivors who had heard the call. It wasn't much yet, but it was a start. The Dominion was slow to respond. Their arrogance and overconfidence in their control of the galaxy had lulled them into complacency. Nathan knew that the longer they remained unchecked, the more dangerous it would be for the humans and their nascent rebellion. He had to keep moving, keep gathering the pieces of the resistance before the Dominion caught wind of what was happening. Mira Solis sat at the navigation console, her brow furrowed as she scanned the data. "We've got 2 potential contacts," she said, pointing to the holomap. "One's a small resistance cell in the Altaria system, the other's a group of survivors holding out on Zoreth. Neither is far from here. Which one has the better chance of giving us an edge?" Nathan asked, his voice measured but urgent. Mira didn't hesitate. The Altaria system. They have weapons and tech caches that we could use. The Zorath survivors are mainly civilians. We could help them, but we'll be sitting ducks there. Nathan nodded. Altarius it is. Prepare for jump. Altarius was a system on the edge of known space, home to an aging fleet of resistance fighters who had never given up, even after decades of Dominion oppression. When the Phoenix dropped out of FTL, it found itself in orbit around a battered moon that housed an aging, yet still functional, rebel base. The moon itself was unremarkable, scorched, barren, but the base beneath its surface was a treasure trove of supplies and intelligence. Nathan's boots clanked against the metal floor as he walked toward the hangar, where a group of rebels waited to meet them. These weren't the ordinary slaves or scavengers they had encountered before. The people here were battle-hardened, their eyes sharp with determination. These were the kind of fighters Nathan had hoped to find. The leader of the resistance cell, a woman named Kira Zane, stepped forward as the Phoenix's ramp lowered. She was tall, with dark hair tied back into a tight bun, her face weathered but unyielding. Nathan Cole, she said, her voice steady but warm. I didn't expect to see another human ship this far out. Nathan extended his hand, shaking hers firmly. We've been busy. You're the Altaria cell? Kira nodded. We've been holding this system for years, but resources are running low. We've been waiting for someone, to give us an edge. It looks like you've brought it. Nathan glanced over his shoulder at the Phoenix's crew, who were unloading crates of weapons and supplies. We brought the tech and the manpower. But we'll need your experience and your firepower if we're going to make a real strike. Kira smiled, but it was a hard, calculating smile. You're not the first group to try to take on the Dominion. But I can tell you've got something different, a plan. We've got a fleet hidden in the asteroid belts. But the Dominion will find us eventually, and when they do, they'll wipe us out. What do you have in mind? Nathan paused for a moment, studying the fire in Kira's eyes. We don't just want to fight them off. We want to hit them where it hurts, sabotage their supply lines, destroy their communications, and force them to spread their forces thin. We'll need to attack fast, hit hard, and make it impossible for them to regroup. Kira's eyes narrowed, considering the proposal. A guerrilla campaign? You're suggesting we stretch them across the galaxy until they crack? Exactly, Nathan said, a grim smile crossing his face. We force them to fight on multiple fronts, make them bleed. When the time's right, we hit their command centers, their shipyards, their leadership. Kira let out a slow breath, then nodded. I like it. It's risky, but it's our best shot. The next few days were spent organizing. Kira's rebels showed Nathan and his crew the intricacies of their underground base, a sprawling labyrinth of tunnels and bunkers, all buried deep in the moon's crust. They had weapons, explosives, and enough intel to carry out several strikes on Dominion supply routes. Together, the two groups began planning their first coordinated operation, a raid on a Dominion cargo convoy that was expected to pass through the Altaria system. It was a simple attack, strike quickly, take what they needed, and leave before the Dominion had time to react. But the potential to disrupt supply lines was enormous. As the operation neared, Nathan gathered his crew and Kira's top officers in the war room. Holographic maps of the region flickered in the center of the table, showing the convoy's predicted route. We hit them hard and fast, Nathan said. We steal their supplies, destroy their escorts, and get out before reinforcements arrive. This is our first real test. We can't afford any mistakes. Kira looked around the room, then fixed her gaze on Nathan. If we pull this off, we'll send a message. It won't just be a strike, it'll be a signal that the resistance is growing. That the Dominion isn't invincible. Nathan met her gaze with a steely resolve. Exactly. This is just the beginning. As the rebels prepared for the raid, Nathan watched from the observation deck of the Phoenix. The stars outside seemed distant, cold, yet, for the first time in years, they felt full of possibility. This was more than just survival. This was the beginning of the end for the Dominion. The flame of rebellion was spreading. The night before the raid, the tension aboard the Phoenix was palpable. The ship hummed with the nervous energy of a crew that was about to embark on their first real strike against the Dominion. While the rebels prepared their weapons and finalized their strategy, Nathan Cole found himself alone in the command center, staring at the holographic map of the Altaria system. The convoy they were targeting was vital to the Dominion's logistical operations, hauling much-needed fuel and ammunition to one of their key outposts. The timing was critical. If they succeeded, the Dominion would be forced to adjust their entire supply chain, opening the door for further raids and weakening their grip on the system. But failure wasn't an option. If they failed, it wouldn't just be the Phoenix and the Altaria cell that paid the price, it would set back the rebellion for months, maybe even years. Mira entered the room, her face tired but determined. The crew's ready. Dom's got the explosives prepped, and Kira's fighters are in position. Nathan nodded, not taking his eyes off the map. We've got one shot at this. The Dominion won't underestimate us again if we succeed, but if we don't, it's going to be a bloodbath. We'll make it work, Mira said, a faint smile playing at the edges of her lips. You've got a way of rallying people, Nathan. We've come this far because of that. Nathan turned to her, his expression softening. I don't know if it's enough. But we have no choice. The day of the raid, the sky above Altarius was a swirling mix of reds and blacks, the moon's barren surface casting long shadows across the battlefield. The Phoenix and Kira's rebel fighters were positioned at the edge of the system, waiting for the convoy to make its move. Kira stood beside Nathan on the bridge, watching the convoy's predicted path appear on the holomap. Her fingers gripped the railing tightly as the silence in the room stretched long. How many ships are we up against? She asked, her voice calm despite the urgency. 6 escort ships, plus the convoy itself, Nathan replied, his mind running through the strategy one last time. We'll hit the convoy from 2 angles. The rebels will take the rear guard, hit the fuel transports, while we take out the escorts. We need to disable the command ship first, if we don't, they'll call for reinforcements. Kira's eyes narrowed. And we can't afford reinforcements. No, Nathan said firmly. We do it clean, and we do it fast. The assault began as planned. The convoy emerged from behind a nearby asteroid field, moving in tight formation, unaware of the ambush waiting for them. The first volley of fire came from Kira's fighters, small, agile ships that swarmed around the convoy's rear, attacking with precision and taking down one of the supply ships within seconds. At the same time, the Phoenix broke through the front lines, firing its plasma turrets at the lead escort ship. The Zalarian forces aboard the convoy scrambled to respond, but they were unprepared for the ferocity of the attack. Take down the command ship. Nathan barked into the comms. We can't let them call for backup. Dom, manning the weapons station, fired with deadly accuracy. The first volley hit the bridge of the command ship, knocking out its shields and sending it spiraling out of control. The Zalari crew aboard screamed in panic, but it was already too late. The ship was doomed. Mira steered the Phoenix through the chaos, dodging incoming fire from the remaining escort ships. The rebel fighters harassed the convoy, taking down one ship after another, while Nathan's crew kept up the pressure on the Zalari reinforcements. But as the battle wore on, Nathan's heart sank. More enemy ships were arriving, dropping out of FTL one after another. The Dominion had responded faster than expected. Kira's voice crackled over the comms. We've taken down most of the convoy, but they've sent reinforcements. We can't hold this off much longer. Nathan gritted his teeth. We can't leave now. We've done too much damage. The Phoenix isn't going anywhere until we finish this. Understood, Kira replied. We'll buy you time. The rebellion fighters pressed harder, luring the Dominion ships away from the Phoenix while Nathan and his crew continued to press the advantage. But the reinforcements were overwhelming. 5 minutes until full withdrawal, Mira said, voice tight. We can't stay here too much longer. Nathan hesitated, looking at the destruction they had already caused. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him: stay, risk everything, or retreat and live to fight another day. He didn't have to think long. "Pull back," Nathan ordered. "We've done enough damage. Let's go." The Phoenix turned, escaping the battlefield with its cargo hold full of Dominion fuel and ammunition. Behind them, the once pristine convoy was in flames, its escort ships scattering. But as the crew made their way into the depths of space, the reality set in: this was just the beginning. The Dominion would be furious. They would come for them, hard. But now, the rebellion had taken a giant step forward. The resistance was growing, the flame of rebellion igniting across the galaxy. But Nathan knew one thing for sure: they weren't finished yet. The aftermath of the Altarius raid had been a whirlwind of triumph and fear. The Phoenix was no longer a simple rebel ship, it had become a symbol of hope, a beacon for those who had long given up. The message of their success had spread like wildfire across the galaxy, drawing in not only human survivors but also sympathetic species from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The Dominion, however, was far from complacent. They had underestimated the resilience of humanity, and they wouldn't make that mistake again. Nathan Cole sat in the command chair of the Phoenix, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. His hands were tight on the armrests, his mind focused, but his heart raced. The Dominion was retaliating, sending massive war fleets into the Altarius system. They knew who was responsible for the raid, and they were out for blood. But Nathan had made a decision. The time for evasion was over. It was time to make the final push. "Any sign of the Dominion fleets yet?" Nathan asked Mira, who was watching the scanners from the navigation console. "Not yet," she replied, her voice low. "But they'll be here soon. We can't keep running forever." Nathan looked over at Kira, who had become a trusted ally in the fight. She was a seasoned commander, and her resistance cell had proven invaluable in their campaigns. Her eyes met his, and she knew what he was about to say. "We hit them first," Nathan said, his voice hardening with determination. "We attack their strongholds. We don't wait for them to come to us." Kira studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You're sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. We'll have all of the Dominion's wrath focused on us." "I know," Nathan said, his voice unwavering. "But if we don't strike now, they'll destroy everything we've built. The time for hesitation is over." The plan was audacious, even by their standards. The Dominion had multiple heavily fortified strongholds, each a key node in their military and communication networks. But Nathan's strategy was to attack them all at once, divide their attention, overwhelm them, and strike at the heart of the Empire. They began with a coordinated strike on the Dominion's central military hub in the Calthar system, where the highest-ranking officials operated. The operation required precision, speed, and a level of coordination none of them had ever attempted before. But the stakes were high. If they succeeded, it would send a clear message: humanity was no longer a broken, scattered species, they were a force to be reckoned with. The rebel fleet, led by the Phoenix, was joined by several new allies from the Altarius system and beyond. Ships of various sizes, human, alien, and hybrid, formed an unbreakable line as they prepared to assault Calthar. It was their largest fleet yet, and it was ready to make history. "Ready to launch," Kira called over the comms. "Once we breach their defenses, we'll have 5 minutes before their reinforcements arrive. That's our window." Nathan took a deep breath. "Then we make those 5 minutes count." The battle in Calthar was unlike any they had fought before. The Dominion had prepared for an attack, but they hadn't anticipated the ferocity or the number of ships involved. The Phoenix and the rebel fleet dove into the heart of the enemy's defenses, blasting through heavy turrets and shielded outposts with precision strikes. The Dominion's command ship was the first to fall, its systems overwhelmed by the Phoenix's concentrated fire. "We're through," Mira shouted. Heading straight for their communications center. The plan was working, but the Dominion wasn't going down without a fight. Reinforcements poured into the system, but the rebels were relentless. Ship after ship fell to their combined firepower. It was chaos, a brutal, unforgiving battle, but the Phoenix and its allies pressed forward, refusing to back down. Kira led a direct assault on the Dominion's leadership compound, sending teams down to disable critical infrastructure while the Phoenix provided cover. Nathan's heart pounded as he watched the battle unfold. The stakes had never been higher, but he couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders. If they won, it would be a new era for humanity. If they failed, it would be the end of everything. Then, as the 5-minute window came to a close, the unexpected happened. A larger fleet of Dominion reinforcements appeared in the Calthor system. It wasn't just a few ships. It was the bulk of their remaining fleet, every single one converging on their position. "We're outnumbered," Mira called out, urgency in her voice. "We need to fall back, now." "No," Nathan said, his jaw set. "We've come too far. We're staying. We've weakened their command structure. We've disrupted their supply chains. Now, we finish it." He looked at Kira. "We don't retreat. We break them." With steely resolve, Kira nodded, her voice calm and commanding. "For humanity." The next few hours were a blur of fire, explosions, and desperate maneuvers. But the Phoenix and its rebel fleet fought with everything they had. And in the end, against all odds, they won. The Dominion's command structure was decimated, their fleet scattered and crippled. The victory wasn't without cost, many lives were lost, and the battle had taken its toll on their ships, but they had done it. The tide had officially turned. As the smoke of the final battle cleared, Nathan stood at the bridge of the Phoenix, looking out over the system. The rebellion had been born from desperation and fire, and now, it had become something unstoppable. Humanity had won. The galaxy would never be the same. "This is just the beginning," Nathan murmured to himself, his eyes hard with determination. "The Dominion may have been defeated here, but the war isn't over. Not by a long shot." And somewhere, deep in the vastness of space, the spark of rebellion burned brighter than ever.